Hello everyone, and thanks once again for joining us for Monday's edition of Alaska Weather, 6th day of September 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show once again. Up first, we've got the hazardous weather graphic. Again, no hazardous warnings, advisories or watches out around the state, although gale warnings coming into the south coast late tonight. Other than that, no other watches, warnings, or advisories. No big storms expected to hit the area over the next probably several days. Satellite imagery showing a lot of moisture moving eastward across the central southern Bering Sea, or across the Bering Sea there. Quite a band, not all that organized, kind of broken clouds there farther to the north towards St. Lawrence Island, and actually following in behind a batch of moisture moving into the northwest interior today, St. Lawrence Island, with a low pressure area there, and moisture mid and high level clouds sliding into the central interior, north of the Alaska Range and into the Kuskokwim Valley. But areas east of the Alaska Range cleared out as upper level system moved into the eastern interior, Copper River Basin today. Showers ended from west to east, but lingered over the eastern interior, again Copper River Basin, especially the central eastern areas, into the afternoon. And also for the North Gulf Coast, eastern North Gulf Coast, northern Panhandle, and then moisture bringing a little bit of lighter precipitation into the southern southeast coast, kind of streaming northward there. You can see a band pushing across the Queen Charlotte's into Dixon Entrance and sliding on up into the inner channels, southern inner channels of the Panhandle. And then some banding of clouds there up along the North Slope Arctic coastal area, especially the east and west side. Kicking off to the northeast with low pressure over the Russian Far East, advancing eastward and a little to the southeast. On the chart today, see a front there, frontal action in the northern Bering Sea with moisture to the south there. One trough bringing some light precipitation into the southwest coast, Alaska Peninsula, and some light rain, fog, and drizzle occurring over the central Aleutians and on up along that warm front, not into the Pribilofs yet. And then rainfall amounts with the system moving into the northwest interior, not all that heavy, 12-hour amounts, 0.4 of an inch at Nome in the last 12 hours, respectable amount there. Otherwise, Caltag and Koyuk, Caltag and Koyuk both, and Teller picked up 0.2 of an inch of precipitation. Lighter amounts up to the north, and partly sunny skies, central interior, mostly sunny, at least to start there for the Kuskokwim Valley, and into Cook Inlet with the showers tapering off, lingering over the mountainous terrain, slowly ending, and over the Copper River Basin, Gulkana picked up about 0.15 of an inch of shower activity today. Otherwise, the heaviest rainfall amounts, eastern North Gulf Coast at Yakutat, normally wet place there with over 0.5 an inch falling. Gustavus had 0.4 of an inch. By contrast, down to the south, Ketchikan only picked up 2/100ths of an inch of precipitation. Of course, the main rain-producing clouds of that system still well to your south there, now just coming down to the Queen Charlotte Islands. And they'll be moving up tonight. For tonight's forecast, that low tracks due northward. Look for gale warnings to develop along the coast of Prince of Wales Island, maybe even over the southern inner channels late tonight, with rain increasing as well from south to north. Should stay dry, just increasing clouds over the northern Panhandle, while the eastern North Gulf Coast clears out. Showers end and clearing shifts eastward with a high pressure shifting eastward. So clouds will be on the increase, especially mid and high level clouds. Cook Inlet, Susitna Valley, up toward Denali Park, but the main rain area back with that front along the western, coming inland there, just west of the Yukon River, and the heaviest rainfall southern Seward Peninsula and southern slopes of the western Alaska Range along mountain areas, with Just a weak trailing edge dragging into the Pribilofs for some light rain, fog, and drizzle. Probably some IFR as well, but not too bad for the Alaska Peninsula. Light winds over all of the Aleutians. Just a chance of rain getting northward with that system south of Atka Island. And otherwise should be dry for the Arctic coast and the North Slope. And then the forecast for tomorrow, warm front swings north of the Brooks Range. That's about dry, a warm front as you'll see. Just a chance of precipitation there, western Arctic coast, western North Slope. Better chance south of the mountains though. Periods of rain, that front weakens into a trough. Leftover moisture, southwest flow will keep it cloudy, and quite an area of rain, light rain. Briefly moderate, possibly in areas early on, but from Kuskokwim Bay northward there to the central Alaska Range and the Kobuk Valley. Just light rain there into the central interior as well. Scattered showers possible late in the day. Susitna Valley into the Talkeetnas. Should stay dry over Cook Inlet, but increasing clouds, thickening and lowering also for Kodiak Island. Mostly sunny. Copper River Basin, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, right up into the eastern Tanana Valley, upper 40 mile country, the Eagle. And that low weakens there as it moves northward to just west of Sitka by about this time tomorrow, or tomorrow afternoon, mid-afternoon, say 3-4 p.m. West of Sitka, and rain spreads northward, but it'll be light rain, and winds and rain diminish over the southern panhandle, but persist into early evening there. Otherwise, the central Aleutians, weak ridging, dry conditions, light winds, maybe some sunshine, Adak and Atka. Showers linger over the Fox Islands. And then the winds pick up for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula on Wednesday. Possible gale force winds, especially in gusts, with that 989 millibar low coming up from the south there, with rain possibly moderate, briefly heavy there on the southern coast of the Alaska Peninsula. And Bristol Bay, just showers, areas of light rain, upper level trough again, keeping it cloudy and unsettled over the western part of the state. The eastern central interior, not looking bad, partly to mostly sunny from Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, right on up to the eastern Arctic coast and into the Yukon. Warm front brings possible moderate amounts of rain in from Dixon Entrance, cutting up across the eastern southern panhandle there, with showers scattering out as you head north, but still a pretty good chance of some scattered shower action there for Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay on up to maybe Skagway, and even up to into the probably east of the Burwash area. But out west, another system drops out of the Russian Far East there, bringing rain to St. Matthew Island. Western Seward Peninsula, chance of rain late in the day. Not much of a gradient with that, so winds don't look to be much of a factor with it either at this point. Also winds on the Arctic coast coming down from what they'll be tomorrow, losing the small craft advisories up there on Wednesday, coming down about 15 knots to the eastern Boulevard Sea coast, again with possible clearing. And even the west side, light winds there, chance of rain getting up to maybe Point Lay and south and southwestward. Kotzebue, cloudy, light rain, fog, drizzle at times, but the Pribilofs under high pressure, weak ridge, kind of transitory in between systems there. So call it mostly cloudy, light winds, maybe a sunbreak or two if you're lucky. Otherwise, moving on to the temperatures, we've got upper 30s, the forecast lows for the Copper River Basin. Call it mid to upper 30s with clearing skies. Otherwise, in the 40s, mid to upper for south central Alaska, Kuskokwim Valley, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, and the Panhandle. Mid to upper 40s in the north to mid 50s down south and along the central coast. And then highs tomorrow, upper 50s to lower 60s for the Panhandle. Same thing for the North Gulf Coast. And let's see, mid to upper or mid 60s. I want to say 90s, looking at that temperature or the color pattern there, but lower 60s for the Copper River Basin, upper 50s to lower 60s, south central Alaska, near 60 Kodiak Island, and upper 50s for Bristol Bay, mid 50s for the Kuskokwim Valley. Don't go with the color, go with the values, actual numbers. And for the lows, mid 30s Copper River Basin, and upper 40s Northern Panhandle for the highs on Wednesday, or for the lows Wednesday morning, upper 40s Northern Panhandle, and lower to mid 50s south, 40s southern Alaska, upper 40s Kodiak Island, and for the highs Wednesday afternoon, 50s Kuskokwim Valley, mid 50s, mid to upper 50s Bristol Bay, upper 50s Kenai Peninsula, Manuscus-Susitna Valley, Anchorage, lower 60s Copper River Basin, upper 50s for the North Gulf Coast, and 50s to lower 60s for the Panhandle. Farther north there, 30s for your lows to near the frost point in the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, south of the Brooks Range in the 40s, some areas in the mid to upper 30s. And then the highs for tomorrow, lower 60s, lower to mid 60s from the greater Fairbanks area eastward to Northway Tok to Eagle. Cooler back west, and in the 40s for the Arctic coast. Lows a little milder up north there, north of the Brooks Range. Definitely above freezing all areas. Lower 40s, lower to mid 40s south of the mountains. Lower 40s for the northern Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island. Highs mid 60s, about mid 60s, maybe 67, 68 in some areas there for the central and eastern interior, otherwise in the 50s, 40s, lower 50s, Arctic coast, north slope. Out to the southwest, lows near 50 or upper 40s, followed by highs tomorrow in the 50s, followed by lows 45 to 52, followed by highs in the 50s.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather, first graphic here showing some VFR there on the eastern north slope, otherwise marginal VFR north of the Brooks Range. South side of the mountains, though, a zone of IFR, and then another zone of marginal VFR in the mid-Yukon River Valley area. And then out to the west, lower Yukon River, deltas, Kuskokwim Delta, southern Kuskokwim Valley, Bristol Bay, up western Alaska Range, Lake Iliamna, all IFR, and that extends out to St. Lawrence Island, the Pribilofs, and southwestward to Kiska and Amchitka. Otherwise, the remainder of the Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula and western Kodiak Island, marginal VFR. IFR up to the North Gulf Coast, covering Prince William Sound and possibly Passage Canal, extending inland a ways. Marginal VFR south of the Alaska Range, but VFR for Cook Inlet to start. And probably the man who's going to sit in the valley as well. Marginal VFR bracketed by, VFR bracketed by marginal VFR there over the Panhandle. For the afternoon on Tuesday, forecast looking like this for the southeast coast. Good VFR, northern half, and that deteriorates to marginal VFR and then eventually IFR as you head down toward Dixon Entrance and over towards Stewart and Hyder. VFR eastern interior, Copper River Basin, but areas of marginal VFR east of the Alaska Range across south central Alaska, Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island as well. In fact, much of the western to the central interior marginal VFR. North Slope, central and eastern, as well as eastern Beaufort Sea Coast, VFR. IFR zone, Seward Peninsula, Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, grazing Cape Romanzoff, and another small batch out there over the western Aleutians, just west of Adak, or near Adak. And then on Wednesday morning, Bering Sea, mostly marginal, Aleutians mostly marginal, Kodiak Island, marginal VFR, Fognak Island, VFR, and some IFR along the Alaska Range, western Alaska Range extends across the southern Kuskokwim Valley into looks like Togiak. And then eastern interior, not too bad, as well as the north slope in the Arctic coast, mostly VFR. IFR southern panhandle, VFR northern southeast coast, inner channels and waters, and IFR persisting St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait up to Cape Lisbourne, maybe Point Hope, and then south side of the Brooks Range. And for the afternoon, marginal VFR from the Brooks Range across the western central interior, in across all of south central Alaska, Kodiak Island, looks pretty marginal, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, and the Panhandle, with IFR right off the coast of the southern Panhandle there, and IFR south side of the Alaska Peninsula. And for the passes, Anatuvik, VFR trending toward marginal or occasional marginal VFR at times, any point in the day tomorrow for both Anatuvik and Adigan. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, look for a deterioration in conditions throughout the day as more moisture gradually comes in as the ridge shifts eastward. So possibly becoming IFR late, maybe only marginal though. And for rainy, marginal VFR trending toward IFR later in the day. And windy, occasionally marginal. Isabel, VFR becomes marginal maybe during the late afternoon. Mentasta, VFR throughout the day. Tanita, VFR possibly becoming marginal in the afternoon. And for Portage, occasional marginal VFR possible either entrance throughout the entire day. Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, surface and 2,000 feet right along the central Arctic coast there, and 4,000 feet up into the central north slope, and then way down south to 6,000 feet along or over southern Alaska there, 8,000 feet for Kodiak and the southern Panhandle. And moving on to the icing graphic, Some considerable moderates shifting up. Big batch there south of Kodiak Island, and that'll begin to move into the Alaska Peninsula during the day tomorrow. And then the bulk of the moisture there south of the Panhandle initially sliding into the south and to your east, just catching the southern areas. Could be some mixed icing south central Alaska, another band out along the west coast. Jet stream, southwesterlies, 50 to 65 knots across much of interior Alaska, lighter over the southeast interior, but the jet stream clipping the southern panhandle at about 100 knots, even stronger westerlies there over the Aleutians, up to 135 knots into the southern Bering. 40 knots southwesterly St. Lawrence Island to the western Arctic coast, about the same at 3,000 feet. Translates to turbulence. Note the 40 knot winds into the southern panhandle. So we'll go some moderate chop. Strongest winds, Dixon Entrance, Queen Charlotte Islands. Otherwise, areas of considerable moderate chop there from the western Brooks Range to the Yukon Delta coast, including St. Lawrence Island.
Space weather affects technologies. As conditions develop, we put out alerts, warnings, and watches to our customers so they can take action.
The Space Weather Prediction Center has had a long-standing relationship with the power industry, so they've been aware that solar storms, the geomagnetic storm piece of that, can affect the operation of their systems and induce extra currents and loads on those systems that can either trip those systems offline or in the worst of cases, cause damage. That relationship goes back for several decades. In fact, a big incident in 1989 where part of Quebec was tripped offline that affected something like 6 million customers for about 9 hours. I think that really raised the awareness in the power industries.
When we get the alert, we watch the grid and start looking for issues. Are we seeing a decline in voltage? Are we seeing equipment failures? And we readjust the system to try to mitigate those problems, try to keep the lights on and keep it from going out.
Averaging about 500, 550 kilometers per second.
If we didn't have this early warning, we wouldn't see it until our sensor saw it. Getting more information quicker and faster before the storm hits, not during the storm, is a big improvement.
In the long term, I think what we need and what we're moving toward, the U.S. as a whole, is better modeling, fully understanding this phenomenon, understanding how it would impact specific systems.
Rather than actually experiencing a storm, we can simulate storms in our software and see what the impact is. We try to get ahead of it. We always plan that if there's an outage, how can we keep the lights on? What's the best process to prevent it?
In the end, 5-10 years from now, there's going to be a whole mix of operational procedures driven by what we do on prediction and warning. And then there also will probably be some level of hardware controls to ensure the reliability of the grid.
Space weather affects technologies. As conditions develop, we put out alerts, warnings, and watches to our customers so they can take action.
There's different types of impacts on communication systems, and the HF we call the high frequency, which is that band of communications 3 to 30 megahertz. But it's a very important band of radio communication because it's used widespread. It's used, for example, by the airlines.
HF radio is most commonly used for position reporting when you're going across the ocean airspace, which is devoid of radar. And ATC can't see you, so it's up to you to report your position and your altitude and your speed.
HF works great most of the time, except during a big flare. And during a big flare, that HF communication capability could be gone within a minute or two. So as soon as we see something happening in there and we see a flare, it's one of the first things we do is alert the aviation community, hey, big flare, HF's going to be impacted.
Once we know that there's an event going on, then the aviation industry and the airlines can react to that. They can alter their routes over the poles. They can lower the altitudes that they're flying at, or maybe decide not to fly at all in the interest of the passenger safety.
So that's just one example of how HF is used, but the emergency response community will use it a lot too. It's one of their primary backups.
When you've lost connectivity between certain government agencies, it gives you that long-range coverage to talk from out-of-state to federal governments or from the FEMA locations to the state emergency operations centers.
So if you've got a big hurricane impact in the coastline, whatever big city, we've got the cell towers down and whatnot, we've got emergency communication folks in there. Those folks are very familiar with space weather and how it impacts their systems.
Here in recent years, it was used during Katrina when we had a lot of communications outages down there. It was also used during Hurricane Ike. There was an outage of the telephone circuits with the Texas State Emergency Office, so it was used in both of those situations.
So when we talk about backup, especially for the airlines, typically they'll have SATCOM, so it'll be satellite communication.
The satellite technology that emergency responders use could be GPSs, could be satellite phones, satellite data terminals.
Space weather events can impact SATCOMs. The impact can range from a nuisance to loss of a spacecraft. So we will give them the heads up. If we have space weather events, flares, whatnot, they need to know what's impacting their systems. Situational awareness is key. Time is of essence to these folks. Again, it's life and death.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Today's sea ice analysis, no sea ice along the Arctic coast there, and actually it's the thinner ice as well off the coast. And over the next 5-6 days, expected to move either north or northwest, 15 to 30 nautical miles. So no chance of any ice arriving on the Arctic coast in at least this week. Moving on to coastal water forecasts. We've got, for the Panhandle, starting along the southeast coast, small craft advisories, north to northwest winds 15 to 25 knots on the north coast, and south to northeast winds on the south coast, 30 knots with seas around 15 feet. Gale warnings for Clarence Strait, southeast 35 knots, seas 10 feet, northeast 15 for Stevens Passage, north 15 for Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay. And for Wednesday, lighter winds there along the coast, especially the south coast, and Clarence Strait, 15-knot winds there along the coast out of the southwest, Clarence Strait south, and southeast winds 10 to 15 knots through the central and northern inner channels, and kind of variation of winds there, north coast north at 20, eastern North Gulf Coast, winds are running southeast at about 15 knots with 5-foot seas. And moving on to the day for Tuesday for Cook Inlet, south winds 15 knots. Same thing for the Kamishak Bay area and the Barren Islands. Winds southerly at 15 knots and variable winds at 10 knots for Prince William Sound and the western North Gulf Coast. Eastern North Gulf Coast around Middleton Island, that zone, westerlies 15 knots, seas 3 feet. Outlook for Wednesday. South winds 20 knots for the eastern North Gulf Coast, southeast 20 for the west side. Small craft advisories, Barren Islands, southeasterlies at 25 knots. Kamishak Bay, small craft advisories east at 25. And then winds diminishing as you head up Cook Inlet, south of the Forelands, east at 20. Northern Cook Inlet, east at 15. Light east winds at 10 knots for Prince William Sound, seas only 2 feet. Kodiak Island, southwest winds 15 knots, seas 4 feet. Alaska Peninsula, south to southwest winds 15 knots, seas 4 feet. Bristol Bay, south winds 15 knots, seas 3 feet. And for Wednesday, Bristol Bay, east winds 15 knots with 3-foot seas, but pick the winds up everywhere else. Gale warnings, Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula, northeasterlies 35 knots, seas 11 feet. Kodiak Island, southeast 30 knots, east 30 for Shelikof Strait. Fox Islands, Unalaska Island, south, 15 to 20 knots. Variable northeast, 10 to 15 knots. Unmac Island, Adak and Atka, as well as Amchitka, Kiska to Shimia, winds will be southwest at 20. And then Wednesday, small craft advisories from Shimia to Amchitka, southwest 25, seas just under 10 feet, west 20 knots for Adak and Atka, northwest 20 to 35 knots, strongest there south side of Unalaska Island. Gale warnings there for 35 knot northwest winds and 9-foot seas. Southwest coast, southwest winds 20 knots, same thing for St. Matthew Island, southwest 15 for the Pribilofs. Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, south winds at 20. And for Wednesday, Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, southwest coast, both north and south of Nunivak Island, all out of the south at 15 knots with seas 3 to 4 feet along the southwest coast, up to 7 feet for St. Lawrence Island and 5 feet for Norton Sound. Pribilofs, south 20 knots, seas 7 feet, west 15 for St. Matthew Island, seas at about 6 feet. And we've got small craft advisories for a good portion of the Arctic coast tomorrow. 25 knots out of the east over toward Kaktovik demarcation point. That zone down to 20 out of the east, seas 5 feet. And southerlies 15 to 20 knots from Wales to Cape Beaufort with 4 to 5 foot seas. And for Wednesday, south to southeast winds, Wales to Cape Beaufort, about 15 knots, 5 to 6 foot seas. Southeast 15 for the western Arctic coast. Central coast east at 20, 5 foot seas. Southeast 15 for the eastern Beaufort Sea coastline, seas at about 4 feet. And for tonight, front bringing rain, could be a little on the moderate side there, St. Lawrence or Seward Peninsula and the southern slopes of the Western Brooks Range area. Otherwise, a band of rain extending down into Kuskokwim Bay to the Pribilofs, just grazing blow from that system south of Atka Island there. And look for some clearing for the Alaska Peninsula. Clouds will increase later tonight for Cook Inlet, Susitna Valley, and clearing out, showers ending. Copper River Basin, eastern North Gulf Coast, northern Panhandle, but wind and rain, gales late tonight for the south coast of the Panhandle. And then tomorrow that low weakens and moves northward, and the front weakens in the western interior. And Wednesday, upper level trough brings showers and clouds, cooler temperatures of the western interior, dry and partly sunny to the east.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.